And I will always
love Whitney Houston.
Here we are at AMC Town Square with Chasing Cinema.
This is James Shue. How are you?
.com, and we have arguably one of the great singers of all time.
Absolutely. And if you don't think that, come watch Whitney, and you will.
And I'm sorry for disrespecting that song. I'm not a singer, but I wanted to open with that.
That I know it is a very important song to her career. Even though most people don't know, that is a cover. Whitney Houston did not write that song. That wasn't her song. But that song and Whitney Houston hold a very near and dear place to my heart. Before I was adopted by my aunt, my mom, my biological mother dedicated one song to me, and it was Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You. So every time I hear that song, I get very emotional thinking about my biological mother. She's alive and she's fine, and we all talk and all that stuff. But still, it's just a very touching song to me. But obviously, like anyone who grew up and who had parents who liked great music, they heard Whitney Houston, unless you actually grew up when Whitney Houston was dominating the charts. Still to this day, the most consecutive singles, #1 singles, is Whitney Houston.
Did not know that.
Unbelievable, the amount of stuff that she did. She got signed. I mean, and you have to just think, the family alone Whitney Houston came from. Her mother was Sissy Houston, who did a lot of backup. I mean, she sang backup for Elvis Presley. She sang backup for Aretha Franklin. Her whole family were musicians. Her cousin was Dionne Warwick, one of the most talented, and Dee Dee Warwick, who wasn't as popular as her sister Dionne, but still a reputable name, especially in that kind of gospel-esque type music. 19 getting signed. Her mom was a big influence on her, trained her. 19, she gets a record deal, and boom, just completely blows up.
Takes over.
Whitney is a really great documentary that presents the fabulous, wonderful life of Whitney Houston, and rather than giving you everything up front, as we get to the rise of Whitney Houston, we begin to peel back layer after layer and kind of go backwards and really kind of see the tragedy that was her life.
Damn, Bobby Brown.
And you know what?
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Everyone says it's Bobby Brown. I don't know.
I was reading a review of Whitney earlier, and when there's
don't be cruel.
No. There is this quote in the movie that Whitney talks about how the devil wants to take your soul. And at the very end of the movie, in this critic's screening, someone yelled out, "Bobby Brown is the devil."
It's not right, but it's okay.
So I grew up same way. Like everyone, I think, knew about the Bobby Brown whole controversy and his jealousy and things like that. Obviously, he did a lot of things to kind of get in the forefront. But Whitney really opened up to my eyes to a lot of things that I had no idea about Whitney Houston. And I don't know if it, granted, Whitney Houston was kind of, her career was going in a different direction when I was growing up. She wasn't on the #1 charts like she was during the 80s and the early 90s and things like that. I mean, by the time I was conscious of everything, she was a lady who was married to Bobby Brown, who was, constantly in and out of rehab. I mean, that's who she was, and that's very sad. But there is a lot of things in this documentary that I learned. I'm sure diehard Whitney Houston fans probably already know, but I mean, they talk about her sexuality.
What?
They talk about her, so maybe no, maybe see. They talk a lot about her at a young age and kind of the things that might have set her path to where she ended up. They talk, it was just a really emotional, it's a depressing movie. I mean, it really is a heartbreaking movie to kind of watch this. They talk about her with such love and passion. I mean, so many members of her family, including her mother, Sissy Houston, and both of her brothers. Bobby Brown is interviewed for this doc. Even Kevin Costner had a little moment when they were talking about The Bodyguard, and he said some really wonderful things about her. And then just kind of really ending in the sense of just talking about her downfall. And it really is just so heartbreaking to see such amazing talent, and who appeared to be such an amazing woman and done so many things. I mean, one of the main focuses in the movie was talking about the kiss in The Bodyguard, when she runs down that plane and kisses Kevin Costner, and how, this was at a time when
black and white.
Well, black and white, of course, but the part of Africa had just finally been separated, and everything was kind of coming together, and she played this really big part in just being this symbol for a lot of black America. And I mean, that's really touching. But for me, I think the heartbeat of this movie is the constant reference to her relationship with her mother, Sissy Houston. There are these really beautiful, candid moments in interviews of Sissy, talking about her daughter and talking about how much she means. And then there's this, and one thing about documentaries always get me is just people film these moments that seem so unimportant at the time, and then you put them in the documentary, knowing what happens, and they're so real. There's this moment where they're joking, and actually it's really funny, but Whitney says some very not nice things about Paula Abdul, because she's just talking about being in the, at this point in her life, she's kind of being attacked by her community. Reverend Al Sharpton was launching the campaign, Whitney Houston, because they were saying she was too white, she was losing all the great black aspects of her voice, and she's sitting there talking about Paula Abdul just not having the talent, but then her mom and her are joking, they're laughing, and they start hugging, and her mom just tells her that God had blessed her with this gift, and it is her job to kind of spread this gift to the world, and that there's always going to be the demons chasing after you, and not to succumb to them. And obviously we kind of know what happens to Whitney Houston, which unfortunately is really heartbreaking, but she fought, and that's the one kind of thing you learn, Whitney, though, of how much she was a fighter. It's a really emotional movie. I mean, I got emotional many times. I mean, listening to Whitney Houston sing some of her songs, it's just emotional to watch, and like any great talent, they just kind of give you the goosebumps when they perform.
This was an authorized
yeah, I mean, her whole entire family was in here, and Bobby Brown, which, you know, Bobby Brown did some questionable things in his interview, which kind of make you just, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on here, a lot to digest. You know, do I think it was a groundbreaking cinematic documentary? No, I think it was a very straightforward, you know, but the way that they presented material and kind of kept peeling layer after layer back, it was pretty revealing to me, someone who doesn't know a ton about Whitney Houston. Like, for instance, I was talking about the conversation of her sexuality. You know, but overall, I just found it to be a really emotional experience. I would say one of my favorites of the year so far. You know, we're getting down to the middle of the year, and
4 out of 4 stars.
I wouldn't give it probably 4 to 4, maybe 3.5. But I mean, it was still strong enough to where I was emotionally moved. That I mean, I'm really like I'm just kind of want to keep thinking about this movie. I might even want to go see it again.
I think
it's really touching and very beautiful, especially if you're a fan of her stuff. I mean, they just started so. I mean, they started with, of course, the "I Want to Dance with Somebody" music video, and in between they kind of cut back and forth to the court cases and to her and her childhood. And I mean, there's just so many really interesting and moving things about this movie that was brought to light, and I really couldn't complain about anything. You know. I mean, overall, I think this is a documentary that really touches something that's very prominent as far as fame and drug use. And of course, what makes this documentary even harder is while all these people are mourning Whitney, you know, her family are all talking, they're talking about Whitney Houston, and you know, they talk about, you know, Chrissy Houston, her daughter, who also recently passed away about 2 years ago, I believe.
Drowning, right?
Well, they both were in the bathtub,
yeah,
which is kind of scary in and of itself. So, you know, I mean, seeing some there's her aunt, who was named Aunt Bay, who was, you know, this old woman who was on tour with her all the time, and just talking and laughing in most of her interview sequences, and then the moment she has to bring up Chrissy, she breaks down in tears, and it's the way that she just begins to cry during her interview. It's not like talking and crying. I mean, it's a real painful, like, you know, sob, and it's really just hard to watch these people kind of talk about two really important people that they lost, and it's really unfortunate. But I think what they're trying to do, what they're trying to tell the story and keep the legend of Whitney Houston alive is really touching and overall pretty beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a must-watch. It sounds like.
Yeah, no,
you got me jacked on
especially if you know if you're a fan to any degree. Like I said, I mean, I love Whitney Houston, but do I have a ton of her albums? Do I know all about her? Did I learn a lot of things here? No, I knew, you know, obviously her family and the stuff that most people knew. But I mean, there was a lot of things that I learned, and I mean, as they reveal more, it just all kind of connects. You know, there's this, you know, thing about her childhood, and you know, they make it a big deal that Whitney always brought Chrissy on tour with them, and everyone knew bringing your daughter on tour that young wasn't a good idea. You know, your kid needs to be in school, needs to have stability. But the more we pull back those layers, the more we see why, you know, she brings her daughter everywhere, and why she can't just leave her with someone else, and it becomes, you know, more and more painful in the sense that it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, where this documentary is trying to say and like kind of idolize this woman of what she did, and even though, you know, she succumbed to her demons, it really tells a beautiful story.
Do you think this movie's ranking higher than A Quiet Place?
Yeah, oh yeah, in my list, yeah, just because of the emotions that I went through. I mean, A Quiet Place, which is interesting that you brought that up, but I mean, a very fun movie that's thrilling in the moment, but this is a movie that, you know, makes me, well, I think any great documentary wants you to learn more about a subject, and I'm definitely more interested in learning more about Whitney Houston's life, though. I'm sure that documentary probably told me as much as I'll find out just generally. But I mean, it just was more a symbol of just, they symbolized Whitney in a way where what she stood for was really beautiful, you know what I mean? I think that's what really got me.
I love it. Also this week that came out is Marvel's 20th film.
Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp. A pretty big movie.
Lily,
yes.
Paul Rudd, Michael
Michelle
Douglas.
Pfeiffer. Catwoman herself.
The original. Well, not the original, but my first.
Your first Catwoman. Yeah, absolutely. And we also reviewed The First Purge. It came out on the 4th of
All
July.
available.
All available. Click that wide eye. Also, cruise on over to his YouTube, find all the stuff that's going on, as well as the website, Shoe M James, and that's Shoe is spelled
HSU.
mjames.com. You can register and see all the crazy events we have going. We have a lot of stuff going on, so I want you to be a part of it. And of course, we're always here every Thursday, AMC Town Square at 10 p.m. Next week, we're going to be doing Skyscraper. We're the most electrifying man in all of entertainment.
Dwayne The Rock
Johnson
is me fighting
a skyscraper.
Because if there's anyone who could fight the skyscraper, it would be
The Rock. Yeah. That's why I don't think Rampage really worked for me, because we don't need a giant monkey to take on, you know, a town to crush it. It could have just been The Rock. We didn't even need the animals.
No.
The Rock could have done the Rampage.
He's a
all by
beast himself.
Exactly. He's way more threatening than a big white gorilla.
We all agree. All right, guys. Next week, if you want to join us, let us know. And
comment below or text this guy. You know his number, 702
348-5618, and ChasingCinema.com is known as
Film Lovers website.